Hey, um, I've been thinking about starting a music series part of my channel, among other things for, a long time. But I just haven't gotten around to it. Part of that has to do with what I wanted to start with. Was I going to do something about a band that I loved or a musical concept that I love? Or was it going to be kind of a here's who I am, this is where I'm coming from, introduction type video? All those kind of things, like, oh, maybe I'll do this, maybe, one thing leads to another and you never get anywhere. Um, so I fell victim to that, and, but now I'm doing it. And the catalyst is something I wasn't expecting. And it's not even something that I really enjoy, well, directly enjoy. I do, there's some aspect I enjoy of it, but not, what's apparent. And it's about this band here that I like to call Angine de Poitrine. They came out of the woodwork. In their own circle, they've been doing their thing, and people know who they are, I'm sure. But I started seeing stuff about them maybe 3 weeks ago, and that's when it just seemed like everybody was, they took the internet by storm. I mean, anybody watching this knows that by this point. I'm late to the game here. I'm procrastinated to the game. In other words, I'd seen it when it first kind of made the big splash, and and seeing all of my favorite YouTubers and different YouTubers, making videos reacting to it, and it all seems favorable. And kind of like, wow, this band they're great, and I can't believe they're doing this, and that people are, loving them. My reaction was just, I was not very impressed by them at all. So that's what this video is going to be about. Why I'm not impressed with Angine de Poitrine. But I should start by saying that on a human level, I'm very excited for them. I think it's great that, I mean, man, in this day and age, to just stumble onto or to figure out how to be successful in a way that can potentially support you, it's amazing. And whether they seem like a kind of a flash in the pan type thing, but maybe the flash will last for a while in the pan. I hope that they find a lot of success, are able to do the things they want to do, and they're obviously doing what they want to do. So I just want to say that right off the bat, but that has nothing to do with whether I like them or not, and why. And the things that I've heard that people are impressed with, I don't think are impressive. So let's just watch a little bit, and then I'll try not to. And this is unscripted and very low tech. So, because that's the way I am. So you're gonna have to deal with it, and I'm not gonna change anything about the way I do it. So let's back it up here to where they. Let's see. Okay, here we go. I'm not laughing because I think any of that's interesting or cool, which I'll get to. Tip of the hat to you. God, it's so dumb. So fucking dumb. God. Okay. I mean, relatively dumb. there's, they're technically, I mean, they can play their instruments. There is some technical aspect to what they're doing. There's some, I don't want to say interesting because I'm not interested in it, but I mean, I guess that there's different elements to what they're doing, which, I mean, I'm sure you've seen in all the videos. There's the guys playing a microtonal guitar and bass, or maybe it's just a guitar. Either way, there's microtonal music happening there, which means that they're just playing, in between the notes in between the notes, which are actually just notes. This is very common in different ethnic cultures around the world. And if you have a fretless instrument, then it's very easy to play microtonally. And so, a lot of instruments from around the world, in different cultures, don't have frets, and so they've just kind of evolved to have music that plays the notes in between. As in the Western world, we've kind of defined these different steps or notes of a scale that we've kind of accepted, a 12-note scale, and so most popular music is just uses that framework, that structure to accomplish what it does. So I mean, I guess you'd say, well, oh my gosh, they're bringing microtonality to the table, and I will say about that some, maybe it takes a band like this to that I don't think is very good to introduce something that somebody else takes and makes something good with. I'm pretty. I mean, this is a complete side thing, but I'll just say this. I have a well thought out thing where I believe that music created before 1990, up to 1990, including 1990, is innocent, inherently innocent until proven guilty. I'm not saying there's bad music. I'm not saying it's all good. There's bad music before that. I'm just saying that it's inherently innocent until proven guilty. Music after 1990 until present is guilty until proven innocent. And there are some things I like after 1990, but they are, and which kind of goes into this. I mean, this falls into a lot of the traps of that, and that's a completely different musical discussion of that has to do with why music isn't as good as it used to be, which I'm not going to get into. But I guess I should address. So back macrotonality. That's technically different, and they're introducing it to a large audience, a larger Western musical absorbing audience, and so that's technically a different thing. The other, I guess, the elephant in the room is, or not so elephant in the room, is their costumes, which I'll just mention right now. I don't appreciate their costumes. I don't appreciate any costumes, really. I mean, I guess there's, I appreciate people. It's difficult because it's not that I just hate get-ups and costumes across the board. It's just, well, I have a friend who had I'm not interested. I'm not a quotes person. I don't feel moved and, seek out or always looking for the next quote or looking to quote something, I think to me, that's a sign of stupidity in a way. I mean, or just trying to, identify with some kind of little thing. I mean, it's, anyway, sorry, I'm like seeing these little other diversions that I could go off on, but I gotta stay on the track. A friend of mine said, there's two quotes that I really remember and I appreciate in my entire life. One is by a friend of mine who said, I never trust anyone with a sense of style, which I just love and I understand. Now, does he literally trust people in his life who exhibit some sense of style? Yeah, I'm sure he does. But you just have to. I'm not going to go down that path. Hopefully, you know what I'm talking. That resonates with you in a way that it resonated with me. So, Andres Poutine is exhibiting a sense of style, and you have to ask. I look for the person in situations like this to either kind of subconsciously or in some kind of subtext, like is there some kind of apology going on um, for them dressing like that, um, or is this just a genuine? How authentic is this? This is not very authentic. This is not very genuine. They're exhibiting a sense of style. So why are they doing it? Is it and then you get into a whole level of like irony and you know are you aware of irony? Okay, yeah, but then are you like aware of irony? Or like you can just keep going with that down that trail. um so you know sorry, I just want to look at their costume again. um the first hit I got when I saw their costume was, it just immediately gave a V for Vendetta vibe. And it reminded me of all these people that I knew about. And, I mean, and sometimes I see that my Facebook friends or avatars or people will post the mask as their avatar. Um, and I feel like there's a certain kind of person. It doesn't have to do with the the concept or the story behind V for Vendetta, what it stands for, the anti-fascism, totalitarian stuff. I'm not against that. But sometimes, I don't know. Do you ever notice that there are people who just have a little too much and who have too much enthusiasm about the right thing? You know, I mean, and it seems like they're just a little too into the look of it. I mean, you can just tell that they're just a little too excited about the look of this the movement. Um, and I guess I think that there's a basic human thing that happens where you I mean there's some kind of evolutionary or there's something there that like helps, would help a caveman. Something about the I don't know, I don't want to go down that path either, but if you know what I'm talking about, I just feel like that it's the Andres Poutine, their outfits, I feel like they trigger a certain kind of person to just feel and identify with a way that like they think they're identifying with, but it's more of like a subconscious, like they're being kind of like they've been trapped and are being guided by the concept more than them, really um, knowing what they're doing. Um, this is where so then what can happen here is when you like when people when like a trend or a fad starts, whether it's in a political movement or just pop culture or whatever, um, a lot of times when you trace back the origin, it has sincere or authentic beginnings that it just basically caught on with people who are like that, who are just like kind of like easily um, ensnared in an aesthetic by an aesthetic, and they just kind of bastard. I guess you would say bastardize the original intent or whatever. So what's the original intent? You know, sometimes it's like it's just a joke. You know. So I guess you know, you just have to boil it down to the nugget, you know, like what, you know, so is Angie's latrine, are they, um, what is their nugget, you know? I mean, I heard, I think in one of the videos I saw that they were dressing like that because they had too many gigs at the same place, you know, something like this. Too many gigs at the same place, and they were just trying to mix it up for their friends. You know, it's like, hey, we're the same band, but let's just call ourselves a different name and have this get up. Now that seems, and now I can totally relate to being young and wanting to go full tilt on something like that. And maybe that's happening here. But I just feel suspicious of that because it's so elaborate. It's not just a, um, hey guys, we're just gonna do something a little different, you know, to mix it up for you. I mean, it's a little too intentional, you know. So is the intention just completely, you know, and then you have to evaluate like how far into the performance art is it, you know? Are they trying to, I mean, and how much of the joke are they aware of, and how much do they believe in what they're wearing and doing? You know, it's so I guess you have to kind of know the people. I would have to sit down and you know get a load of them for you know several minutes at least, just to say like, okay, they're an asshole, you know, or no, that's great, and they did they're pulling one over on everybody, you know, here, you know. You know, just from looking at it on the outside looking in, I think that they believe it too much. Maybe they don't, but to me it appears that they are immersed in what they're doing for real, you know, which uh, I guess kind of makes them somewhat of an asshole uh, for doing that. So what's wrong with the get up? Well, I mean, we're just a bunch of babies that need these bright, vivid colors and something to shock us out of, you know, whatever rut we're in. You know, um, I've been involved in music and for 35 years. Um, One of my longest projects that I did was I started in the late 90s. It went to like the mid 2010s or so, and it was a um, basically a project where I was kind of feeling inspired from music of my childhood, which was things like the Pointer Sisters, Beverly Hills Cop soundtrack, the Michael McDonald, Prince, things of that nature. Just like kind of high energy pop with synth elements, and I was singing falsetto vocals. This was in a time that was kind of before the 80s retro throwback era, you know, so it was seen as like as something unusual, technically. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not, you know, I'm just saying this is what it, you know, it kind of stuck out as like a sore thumb, you know, in the landscape of the music going on, of the indie rock that was everybody was doing. And you know, people found it, I mean, I had people like it for the novelty of it. Um, I had been involved in the previous decade in the 90s with like progressive rock and experimental music, avant-garde, improv, you know, just the depths of that, going deep with that, not like just not like the surface bands, but like French and Belgian progressive stuff, Eastern European, Italian, that kind of stuff. So when I started going back to this just like very sugary 80s pop, super pop stuff, there were elements that I couldn't help but bring in from the other kind of darker, more progressive things, elements in there. So I was just really interested in the musical aspect of it. So there's some people were interested in that part of it. Mostly they were interested in just like kind of the novelty of it, which whatever. What I did was I was renting a house for a while, and I couldn't afford to do it anymore. So it culminated with me kind of releasing like a first album of this project. And I gave up the rent house, put some stuff in storage at different friends' parents' house, and then I had a van and a dog, and I went on tour for basically 4 years, that's where I lived, and I would go from city to city. I had no plan. I just went to a venue that looked like, hey, this is the place that I would play in my hometown, and asked to play. And I had my own amplification and stuff, and so sometimes it'd be like them. I was a one-man thing doing keyboards and left-hand bass, chords, singing with a beatbox and going on chattering around in the background, playing the stuff over it. They would, so I got, sometimes add onto a bill. It was very easy for me. And in other words, I wasn't like a huge ask. And then when they saw what I was doing, they were just like, oh, wow. I mean, it was just like something different, something different is good, I guess, but then, how do you process it beyond that? The nature of my stuff, like I said, high energy, it had like this aerobics element to it. And so, I was always having this. I can't tell you how many times, I was just dressing like this. You know what I'm saying? Just whatever. And people were always trying to coach me, telling me, what you need to do is wear a jumpsuit. What you need to do is wear like aerobics outfit. You need to wear like the whole 80s headband and wristbands and, what you need to do is wear a gold lame jumpsuit. I mean, there's always some kind of golds. It was like, people, they wanted, I was always getting these recommendations to just go over the top. You need to go over the top. Please go over the top. Wear this crazy outfit to go with your music. It's almost like we can't stand to hear your music without seeing this presentation along with it. Please do this for us. And that's just not, I didn't do it, and it's probably to my detriment. Maybe I'd be like, who knows, maybe I'd be just like a superstar at this point, if I'd done that. I mean, there were other bands I was playing with around the country, or seeing on tour that, that took it to a level, and they had their outfit together. So, I mean, that's my bad, I guess. But, maybe I'm just too, whatever. I don't want to use the word cynical. I just feel like there's just so many words that get thrown around, and I don't want to throw that around lightly, but I think you see where I'm headed. So that's why, I played with so many bands that had outfits and that had get-ups, and so when I see Angine de Poitrine, I mean, just imagine playing in a different city almost every day of the year, just looping around the country, going to every little small town, and you see these people who are from, they're locals, and they're doing this, and And for me, that experience of just maybe, I played the same towns like 4 or 5 times a year, because I just would keep going around and around and around the country. So I got to see a lot. It almost became less about the music and more about the psychological study of, or anthropological study of local communities, and what they how they feel about themselves and what they try to do, and how it relates to the one next to them. How it makes them, what makes it tick. And I started seeing patterns. It's just like, basically in every city, there would be the same kind of people in every music scene trying to do, it's trying to do the same thing conceptually. Like there would always be like a certain person who is inclined to do it. There's always like a nerdy white guy who wanted to who's like the ironic white rapper, who was like walking around and acting like just like kind of a dork and a nerd and just like subdued and just kind of like, hi, hello, my name is Sherman, how are you, and then they it's like, oh yes, I will be performing tonight, yes I will, okay, very good to meet you, okay, well I'm going to go get ready, so then they go get ready to perform, and then they come out and it's like, big glasses and like, I mean, I'm just exaggerating, this was to some relative degree how they would kick it up, like some kind of fake afro with an 80s headband, or maybe, just a stupid big gold chain. It's just like, just all the stereo, like, hey, I'm making a joke about rap, I'm a white guy, and it's like they just come out of the box, and it's like they're just an animal. They're just like, they're rapping so hard, and they're just like, whoa, that was a guy that was just like, he's just so subdued and such a nerd in his regular life. Wow, can you believe that this guy is doing this on stage? I mean, he's pulling out all this. I mean, oh my God, this is, what I'm saying? I mean, and imagine going to like, yeah, okay, it's not every city, I'm just saying that like, I feel like in every community there is planted that, the matrix plants these similar personality types, and with the thought of like, how are you gonna, what are you gonna blossom into, what is your angle gonna be? We're gonna give you like um a software program that makes you tend to be this way, and so they kind of spring up, and oh, okay, well, you ended up being the ironic, white rapper wearing, like a captain's hat and whatever, like, or like a stupid gold, thick gold chains, and just look like a caricature of you know this and that. But it's like, but they say, but hey, but I'm doing that, but I know what I'm doing. I'm doing that ironically, you know. Yeah, but then there's different levels to that, and I mean, how much do you see yourself, and I mean, how far are you caught? How deep are you caught in are you in the irony trap? You know what I'm saying? I mean, and how much of an apology do you have for that? Um, I'm getting really caught up on this. Basically, what I'm saying is that, um, I've seen so many Andres Poutines. you know, where are they? I gotta pull them up again. I've just seen so much of this kind of stuff that it doesn't, I mean, it's not shocking, and it's not, it I've played with so many bands like this, and and they've done well for, it's, I mean, this works, doing this kind of thing works. um I guess you just have to be that you have to be the kind of asshole who's willing to do it, and or to sacrifice to do it, like maybe I should have just sacrificed myself to do this kind of thing, wear a gold jumpsuit, because my music sounded like it should have been accompanying an aerobics class, you know. So this is not trustworthy. This is this is not trustworthy, and it's a trap. This is a net that people can get caught in, and it's I mean it's a stupid trap. Um, if you've gotten caught up in the costume or you think there's something cool about the costumes, I mean that's fine. You do what you want to do. But I'm just saying, I would encourage you to check yourself. I mean that you're some kind of an animal that took the bait. There's the box. Here's the box with the stick, and the bait's under here. And here's the string going into the bushes. With Angine de Poitrine, or it's not even so much them probably as much as it is just the conceptual predator in the bushes, the conceptual hunter that's guiding Angine de Poitrine, uh, into being part of the trap. Like the trap is part of the trap. They're the stick in the box with the bait. And it's so I just I was just like, the reason why I didn't do that stuff is just like, well, you know what, I'm me. Now, we'll say one thing, that at the beginning of my coming out musically and starting to do this particular project on stage, I'd played in bands on stage, but this was just me, well, by myself, or just kind of me doing my own music. And it's, right before I started doing that, I kind of did. This is another thing I don't want to get. I can go down get diverted. I don't want to do that. I went through a period of where I kind of did kind of like a personal regressive therapy in a way. And I mean, just bear with me, where because of something that happened in childhood, I was restricted from wearing women's clothes when I was a kid, for fun. And I was kind of slapped down and is told to stop. And it, kind of scarred me a little bit, because I thought I was having fun, and these adults they encouraged me initially, but then rebuked me, and so I had this strong desire to wear women's clothes around this, like right before I was kind of coming out musically. And I did this thing where I did that for 2 years. I wore women's clothing, and they had nothing to do with anything except for, like a personal thing. And once I got to the end of that, I felt like I'd satisfied whatever need I had from the past. I stopped, and that was that. Now, it overlapped with the beginning of my musical path of this particular project. So at the beginning of it, people were associating like, oh, you have a get up, you have an outfit, you wear like women's clothes and you sing like a girl using falsetto. Like, well, no, that was just coincidental. Those two things just kind of overlapped. And so when I stopped doing that, this is before I hit the road, touring, living in a van. I stopped sometime before that. People were like, hey, why'd you stop doing that? And they were like really upset. Like, hey, we can't associate this isn't making sense to us anymore. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. It's just a trap that people fall into. The get up thing. I've spent way too much time on this. Let's get into the music here. Okay. Hopefully some of that was, interesting to you. Okay. Sorry, I want to say one more thing about the get up. When I saw it initially triggered the V for Vendetta mask, I mean, there's something going on there with that. I felt a trigger from that, and I feel like the V for Vendetta thing, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I have some, acquaintances and friends or whatever that just really latched on to that mask. And, you'll see, maybe you've had some friends who they'll put that as their avatar. I feel like that is a trap in itself. I mean, I guess what it represents, the anti-totalitarian or fascist regime thing and rebelling against that. I mean, yeah. I'm not. that, have you ever noticed that sometimes the people that you feel like your beliefs align with people who are just whose aesthetic looks really fucking stupid. I mean, and it seems like they've latched like some kind of like a symbol arises for a resistance, and it's like people get swept up in the aesthetic of the symbol, and you just feel like they have too much enthusiasm for that more than and it's kind of like it's tied together a little too much. And they would never, they would be like, no, are you kidding me? No, I'm very passionate about, I mean, I'm sure they would say that, but just something about it, I feel like that mask triggers a certain person. It's just like a certain kind of trap that triggers a certain person to just be overly enthusiastic about that. And you get the feeling in the sense that they're just, swept up in the aesthetic, and they're enjoying that aspect a little more than they should. Well, I feel like Angine de Poitrine hits those notes and elicits that reaction. God dang, what am I doing here? They just tickle that trigger that makes people want to that makes people.
Everything on the IHOP value menu is just $6. You can go all out.
No, I don't want to see that. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Sorry, I lost it. Lost the screen. So I feel like they're triggering that, and they're really tickling that thing that makes people want to go to that V for Vendetta place, which is really kind of stupid in the way that I'm talking about. All right, the music is loop based, which to me just immediately just doesn't do anything for me. I mean, immediately just I lose interest in that kind of thing. And this kind of goes to what maybe to this the thing I have of where modern music annoys me is that it's just more, instead of being more linear, it's more I guess vertical or compartmental, which kind of aligns with the rise of composing in computer chunks. People, and that's where we are. That's where we're at. Before that, it was before 1990. I would say 1990 and back. Things were, just tended to be a lot more linear. Now, people were doing loop-based stuff, and you would see maybe tracks on albums where that was like kind of like the breakout track, where like there's one thing that's like, whoa, they're just kind of making this a loop, or just there's no. So this is where we're at. We're like, it's not about changing to a chorus and a bridge and progressing and even having like a linear thing. It's more about like creating a loop where you just kind of change elements. You interchange elements, take elements in and out, but basically it just stays, the loop just kind of chunks along. The loop just chunks along, and you think, oh no, there's a chorus. No, there's not really a chorus. I mean, I guess you're using it as a chorus, but nothing's changed. You just kind of like change the sound. This isn't a lot of like pop music and stuff that's going on. And it's a lot easier way, and it's a dumber way to make music. It's an interesting thing. Like, it used to be an interesting thing to have one song on an album that was that way. Maybe from the 70s or 80s, you'd see like, oh, this is an interesting track. But now every track on an album is that way. Whereas maybe the one interesting track is the one that seems to be kind of linear. So when I see stuff like that, it just, so to me it just seems like they've got this little tiny sandbox. They've got this, like, they're just existing in this little tiny space, and they're just like doing all this, like adding all this complexity within this teeny tiny space. I feel like I see through that, and it just doesn't do anything for me. It's not that you can't take a loop and be linear with it. I mean, I feel like hip hop did that throughout in the first, maybe 20, 30 years of its existence, 25 or so. It was, hip hop made by black people, for sure. We're able to take something that was kind of like loop or segment based, and because of what they're doing on top, it gave it a linear approach. This stuff, it just seems like, on Angine de Poitrine, it just seems like, imagine a square, or this isn't a square, but imagine if this was a square. Okay, and this is like a little video game, where there's just like a little character, and it's just like, just like traveling around. Imagine just like them, like, I'm sorry, I'm doing this, but it's like, it's just like, there's no space, and they're just knocking around in a complex way within that little tiny thing. That's not interesting to me at all. Also, their music, has this kind of, I don't know, I like to call it like a rural element to it, because I feel like there's a certain kind of thing, at least in America, that, like, there's like you have like teenage boys from rural areas who are just filled with testosterone and are bored, and they just start raging, and they need some kind of outlet. And so I think some music comes along, and this happened a lot in the 90s, I feel like. It's happened a lot through musical history, I'm sure, but I like looking at it in the 90s, like with bands like Korn and Insane Clown Posse and Incubus. Just those kind of things that just like really get, and 311, and even going back a little further, Primus, I fell into the Primus trap, Mr. Bungle, those are things that I feel that they require a certain kind of teenage boy testosterone, or something like it, in order to exist. Like, it kind of feeds off of that to go to a different level, or to make it be successful. It's like you're just Rage Against the Machine, that kind of stuff. It's just like, I mean, it taps into like, you know, I mean, it's just like that. It's just like once the teenage boy just like, yeah, like, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want. I want that. Give me more. You know, it's dark and sinister, and it loops, and it's got a groove. You know, I mean, it kind of grooves, but it's kind of weird. You know, I mean, it's like this is the kind of stuff. I mean, I mean, you know, I went back recently. I mean, I'm not saying, you know, go ahead and like that stuff. And you know, I kind of like some of that stuff still. You know, I like the dog on some of that, a lot of that crap, but um, it oh man, sorry. No, I like the dog on a lot of that stuff, but you know, and I've gone back to some of that. Like I listened to the Mr. Bungle album, you know, more recently in my life again. You know, after, I mean, like I was just all about that. You know, like that first album when it came out. You know, I discovered it then and saw them on their first tour, and you know, there's like 20 people in the audience, and you know, I just felt like so just energized and incredible. You know, but then, you know, I guess I just started seeing it for what it was, or just like seeing through the patterns, and what the traps, you know, the traps that are set. There's just like all these traps in life that are set, you know, to like grab these little parts of your energy and your brain and your thinking, you know, to just like, hey, let me get that. Oh, you like that? You like this? You like the way they're dressed? Yeah, you like that sinister groove. You like that little offbeat funkiness, you know. I mean, all that stuff's okay. It's just, you know, I just feel like the responsible thing to do is to process it responsibly, you know. I mean, just say and then come up with like, well, do I like this? I mean, I was a huge King Crimson fan in the 90s. Oh my god, you know, there's nothing more than King Crimson, you know. And then I started, they're kind of like that. They're like that. They're a band that's like that just kind of feeds off that teenage boy testosterone thing that but you know, but they've got a little, you know, you're going back further in musical history, so they've got more of a you know, they've got something that kind of transcends that to some degree. I mean, if I'm being honest, you know, you know, it gets the kind of thing that they tapped into gets dumber over the years. You know, in Primus, it was kind of like the last, like, okay, you know, Mr. Bungle, the first album, you know, okay, all right, you know, but then you just start getting into like 311 and you know, you know, all that Rage Against the Machine, and yeah, I mean, things of that nature. So I need to wrap this up. This is just taking way too long. Are Andre's Poutine doing something complex? They are. They're doing something complex in a little tiny square, just bopping around. You know, I mean, it's just like, and then that's a whole other thing, like odd meter and polyrhythm. I mean, you know, there's the brutal approach of just like 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5. You know, I mean, where everything just kind of like follows that thing, or it just, you know, there's like a polyrhythm that's you know, or a polymetric thing that just, you know, locks into in a certain way, and it just has this like nuts and bolts rural testosterone rhythmic thing that's just like, you know, it's I mean, I feel it sounds like patty cake. Bob, dog, 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 dog. I mean, the whole thing just sounds like patty cake to me. I'm gonna skip around. I'm gonna end this. Just I wanted to play more of this stuff, but this is patty cake. It just I mean, he's switching around. The dexterity and like. It's just like, I don't care that it's microtonal. I don't care that there's counter rhythms and it's just. Okay, let's go on. Okay. Yeah, Jesus Christ. Yeah, the line, the communication. Oh, wow, it's so weird how they communicate. Oh, yeah. I'm from Omaha. Yeah, I love this. This speaks to me. I've been baling hay all day, and man, I come home, I fucking drink some beer, and this is what I want. I'm 18 years old. I'm 17. Knocking around the little box, the tiny little box. God, it's so dumb. Oh, give it to me. Give it to me. Okay, let's see here. Jesus Christ. Oh, yeah. Talk. Soul talk. Let's do some 80s Crimson here. Oh, hell yeah, Dave Grohl! Jesus Christ. I mean, the Carney shit, Carney shit. We go into Carney stuff. Oh, nice. You know what? God, I mean, it's just, Jesus Christ. You know what? I mean, I mean, if I want that kind of stuff, I just rather listen to the stuff, the original. I mean, the kind of things that they're coming from. I love Henry Cowell. You listen to Henry Cowell, concerts, in praise of learning. Listen to Universe Zero. I mean, Universe Zero is they're great. Then they're they're kind of like, they're clunky. They're pretty clunky. I mean, Magma. Kind of dips into this. There's a kind of genre of progressive rock called RIO. And it kind of, this, I feel like this wants, Angie's Latrine wants to fit in there, kind of. I guess in America, Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum. I mean, this kind of triggering little things of them. I'm not a huge. I mean, I've seen them a couple times. 20 something years ago, and I enjoyed it. I enjoy seeing them live, but I wouldn't want to listen to it. It's just like they're from the Bay Area, and it kind of feeds into the Primus thing. It's just, there's just, I mean, there's complexity. There's, that kind of stuff going on. I mean, they make their own instruments. There's microtonality happening there. In fact, I feel like if you like Andre's Poutine, Andre's Latrine, Angie's Poutine, if you like that, maybe look up Sleepy Time Grill Museum. I mean, I feel like that's a more linear version of what this is. This is just let's expand what's happening here instead of just like having a tiny little matchbox with like a I guess a tooth you lost, and I was trying to think of a marble, a lost tooth, rattling around in a matchbox. That's what Andre's Poutine reminds me of. This is a long video. If you make it through this, man, hopefully I've made it somewhat entertaining and interesting. What do I have? I'm trying to think. What am I leaving out? As soon as I shut this off, I know I'm gonna think of some things that I didn't say. Yeah, just tapping into that rural, engaged, enraged teenage boy energy. Just living wild. I mean, it's a trap. It's just, I mean, Andre's Poutine is a trap. There's like so many traps in there that want to trap us, which are animals. We are animals, and we are attracted to bright colors, interesting shapes. I mean, I mean, that's one of the things. Like whenever I had kids, we, the organic parents, we want to we get the interesting mobile, which is black and white. It's black and white. It's polka dot in different shapes because that's what infants respond to. They can't see color, and they respond to basic shapes. So there's like just polka dot, faces with polka dots on them. It's just like Andre's Poutine. So there's lots of things. There's lots of like subconscious traps, little things that are being thrown out. And I feel like this is why they're so successful, because they've either on purpose or by accident or for whatever reason, so many things coming together, they've just kind of come together in a way that trigger many different things for many people and just tickle these little things in our brain that make us, feel like, oh, I like that. I like that. When I see them, I watch it, I listen to it. I've seen it before. I've seen lots of bands like that. I've played with so many bands like that just, I mean, not that don't sound exactly like them, but just are kind of like conceptually similar. And it just, I just see through it. I mean, it doesn't. I'm not impressed. I'd rather just listen to this stuff, see what else. Just I'm trying to think, just Eastern progressive stuff. I'm just trying to think of what would be along those lines that not, yeah. Universe Zero, Magma, Artzoid. I mean, I'm sorry, my brain is not. Henry Cow, Art Bears. There's lots of stuff. Sleepy Time Grill Museum. I mean, if you want to check that out, and there's so much more. I should end there. Anyway, Angine de Poitrine. I'm not impressed, but I appreciate what you've done, and that I'm happy for you. That's it. Over and out.